This video is going to be a film study look at the Ravens' defensive performance in their 41-10 win over the Broncos on Sunday afternoon. How much shifts or adjustments did Zach Orr's defensive scheme undergo? Who was responsible for those changes? I really don't necessarily care about that, to be honest with you. I do think there was small adjustments that were made in terms of the game plan, along with situationally aware adjustments that Zach Orr and those guys made as the game progressed. I did not think there were wholesale changes in the structure of the defense. Are there a couple of extra examples of particular coverages in zone? Yes, I do think there's, 2 or 3% more, or 2 or 3 more of those over the course of the game. I do have to give credit here. I think the Ravens defensive staff did a nice job adjusting to Bo Nix's athletic ability as the game moved on. And so what I mean by that is recognizing the situation and being less aggressive with our rush component. Now, I understand that there's, and in fact, I reject a lot of the social media reactions I see about our pass rush in this game because those were schematic choices. That was situations where we elected to only bring 3 or perhaps even some cases 2 and utilize defensive tackles in almost pseudo spy mode. And in fact, there are 2 plays, one of which I'll show you in this video, that's a 3+1 spy where we use Roquan Smith to kind of eye the quarterback on a delayed rush. And those choices, I think, are appropriate. We're up 24-10 at halftime, and then the defensive possessions in the third quarter were up 31-10 and 38-10. So I think Zach Orr and whoever else was responsible, whether Dean Pease is involved or not, I really don't care. Those guys made the right choice for those situations. At the end here, I will talk about still some of the same issues persist occasionally, but they popped up less, in my opinion, watching the entirety of the film early this morning. Staring at the quarterback. It is there. It's still an issue on 2 of the plays that I'll show you in this video. Forcing Brandon Stephens to play man. I have 2 really good examples of that, whereby everybody else is allowed to play with their back to the sideline, and Brandon Stephens, whatever the call is the Ravens use, Maryland, Louis, Solo, whatever, he is playing with his back to the quarterback instead of back to the sideline. And as a result, it's more difficult for him to make a play on the football, as well as our lack of adjustment at times, depending on personnel and where the offense lines up. So let's get to the film, and I'll go through. I think I've got a significant number of plays queued up here. I think 22 plays. So this is going to be the first possession for the Broncos, and you can see that they faked the toss to the running back here. We're in this unique alignment with Ardarius Washington. It's almost like a 4-2-5 Mike. And so a 4-2-5 is a nickel alignment. But that's not the part that is atypical here. So let's do before they motion. The screen kind of moves. I'm not sure what the NFL is doing with their film, but here's a tight end, 2 receivers, so it's 11 personnel with the ball on the right hash. Typically, you would have the nickel defender somewhere down here, lined up to the 2 receiver side. We have him almost in a Mike alignment at like 8 yards. I've seen that before. In fact, I've actually done that before with some of our superior athletes. Put them at like 7 yards or heels at 7.5. Let them fast flow to the football, kind of regardless of what everyone else is doing. And it's not something that you do a ton of. I don't know that that's necessarily what's happening here, but look at his alignment. I mean, he's literally in between the 2 inside linebackers. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not criticizing. I'm actually happy to see us with a somewhat anomalous look. It turns into a cover 2. My suspicion is he's here at times to play like a little bit of a Tampa 2 variation. Marlon's got a route that he releases to the inside. Talking about this tight end here. And then Humphrey, 84, comes all the way across. Great challenge. I believe that's Van Noy forcing Bo Nix to kind of throw it high. Certainly ends up being a drop and off target. I don't know that Van Noy gets a piece of it. I do think it's a nice job in terms of his awareness getting in the window. Of course, we wasted it offensively and didn't get any points out of it nonetheless. So this is going to be second possession. Almost like a hybrid cover 3 here that really looks like quarter, half, but Brandon Stephens is playing this kind of sky technique, and Millette is pushing into the flats, and right as the ball is thrown here, you can see that he's got his eyes on the quarterback while you've got an out break. It's a 3rd and 4, and Bo Nix is getting rid of the ball fast. Up to the top. Really, one of the things that I think we did in this game, and this is going to sound overly simplistic, is we switched Marlon Humphrey and Brandon Stephens in some of our calls. And so what I mean by that is Humphrey ended up playing man with his back to the quarterback, and there's more situations where Brandon Stephens, on his initial backpedal or movement, has his chest or his eyes to the quarterback. And I'll pause it here for a moment. We're not really necessarily evaluating the play, but what I'm talking about is Stephens isn't the guy in press man. If you were to invert this picture and switch the jersey numbers, you would say that's the Ravens defense, whereby this is Brandon Stephens back to the quarterback playing man, and this is Marlon Humphrey in an off position. I'm not saying we just switched our field and boundary calls completely, but there is 6 or 8 plays in here where I'm like, that just looks like the same coverage, except switched to the other side. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. I think Millette is not reacting to the route, and I got to compare this to the Chiefs. I know some people aren't going to like it. When you hear Tony Romo and other people say they're sticky in coverage, what they're verbalizing is that even in zone, those guys are matching up a little sooner, and the throws, the windows are tighter. Part of that, in my opinion, is us keeping our eyes on the quarterback or us averting our eyes to the quarterback in the middle of the play at times. In terms of what coverage this is, we're dropping out 4 underneath droppers. So you're normally either talking quarter, half, or cover 3. There is an element here where this looks like sky cover 3. So you have a safety down to the field. And then Marcus Williams is pushing to the middle of the field. So for all of that, it looks like cover 3 with a man call on the backside. Again, what would that be called in the Ravens defense? That would be called our typical coverage where Brandon Stephens is playing man backside. It's a completion. Broncos are able to get a first down. Forgive me if I digressed, but I'm just trying to give you some explanation for my thoughts on the defense. Now look at a couple of plays later. Marlon Humphrey up here to the top side. Brandon Stephens in press. This basically is the inversion of the same coverage I just showed you, except we're inserting the safety onto the hash. So Marcus Williams is on the left hash. Roquan Smith on the right hash. Trenton Simpson is your curl to flat player. Marlon Humphrey off with his back to the sideline, eyes into the quarterback or in to see the routes. And guess what? Brandon Stephens is back to the quarterback playing man. Essentially the same exact coverage I just showed you, except Brandon Stephens and Marlon Humphrey's roles have switched. And I think this is part of the reason why fans are so frustrated with Brandon Stephens is he's often tasked or given the responsibility or freedom, whatever it is, to play man like this with his back to the quarterback. It is inherently different to react to this route. Oh, by the way, you have essentially the same route down here as you do up here. Look at Marlon Humphrey's ability to look and see the ball thrown. Brandon Stephens can't know that the ball was thrown. It is very short-sighted for people to criticize Brandon Stephens constantly for saying he doesn't turn and get his eyes to the quarterback or he doesn't turn and make a play on the ball. He can't know where the ball is. He's got his back turned to the quarterback. Yes, you want to react to receivers, and when they start to situate their arms, their eyes in terms of turning to face the football, but it's drastically different what he's being asked to do on this play versus Marlon Humphrey, essentially the inverse of the play that I showed you before. This is that same possession, and it's going to be the 4th down stop by Roquan Smith and Brandon Stephens. Unbalanced set. I thought it was illegal formation, to be honest with you. I don't know that. I guess 79 reported eligible here, which is why this guy's able to be off the line with 79 on. So that can be my only assumption. I think in the game breakdown notes, it actually does say that. So if he's eligible, then this guy can be ineligible. But he appears to me to be off. And so what I mean by that is this appears as if this receiver's on the line of scrimmage and that tight end is off. And I think that's an illegal formation with an ineligible tight end lined up eligible. But I guess the difference in this tight end's helmet and this tight end's helmet is the difference between referees determining that tight end is eligible and this guy is not because he's closed off. So I'm fine with that if that's the way that an NFL ref would explain it. Other levels of football, they would call that guy off the line of scrimmage, but the NFL is different. It's a great effort by Roquan Smith. We get motion across, this little pitch toss back to Javonte Williams, and then watch Roquan's angle and how he has to jump over a player who's on the ground in order to get to this football. Additional to that, Brandon Stevens, the tight end, is trying to, or one of the offensive linemen is trying to cut. They, of course, ruled this as a first down initially and then correctly, in my opinion, determined that he was short because of where the football was when his knee was down. So we're moving to the third quarter now, and we're going to be in our typical man free on third down. We lose the running back here. I think this is a 0 for Simpson, if you ask me. We start to get Bo Nix to scramble outside of the pocket. Van Noy is in this little bit of a spy designation. Simpson is manned on the running back here. He's the guy that loses his man once Bo Nix scrambles out of there. So credit to Bo Nix for making a nice play. You can see quite clearly that it's man free for us. So someone has to be responsible for him. We'll run it back one more time, and you can see how the Ravens get this done with Kyle Van Noy kind of stepping back, and then Simpson being responsible for the running back. Why? Well, it's 3rd and 6, and the play that's been absolutely destroying us lately is running back quick to the flats, some concept here that oftentimes would pick us. So if Simpson's feet was here and you got running back into the flats on third down, oftentimes in recent weeks, these guys are running shield concepts and basically preventing Simpson from getting out to the flat. So what have we done? What's our little adjustment here? To kick him outside of that compressed alignment, to basically give him leverage such that the running back can't beat him to the outside. Then it's a little bit more muddy for Simpson to kind of hold on to this running back if he's in the middle of this scrum. Once he clears out, Van Noy is on the quarterback. If Bo Nix keeps running and Simpson stays on the running back, you're still talking about a situation where Van Noy is going to have to tackle Nix out near the sideline, and it's going to be really close to a first down. As it stands, I think that's a 0 for Simpson for leaving his man. Ends up being a 34-yard gain for the running back Williams, who's pretty talented and tough. I don't know if you guys remember him carrying Marlon Humphrey and a bunch of guys for a 20-yard gain in Denver in 2021. So this is the third possession still, and we're now into the second quarter, first play of the second quarter, and this is going to be the slot fade to Troy Franklin that is obviously open against Arthur Millette. We're playing man. Initially looks like we're bringing pressure, and then guys are dropping out. Out of empty, what do we normally see? We normally see empty screens to either number 1 or number 2, or these slot fades. I think we have got to look at our empty coverage. Teams are going to see this on film and say we would like to go there. Or the other possibility, the other answer, I guess, could be maybe we don't have Arthur Millette on someone like a 4-3 speed guy, Troy Franklin, and we put him on in a more appropriate matchup. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. You're certainly not going to be able to hide your guys that are slower afoot in the NFL. If there's a matchup that's going to help, it's going to help the offense, they're going to find it. So far, you can see that some of the coverage elements I think that we've had so far this year have been moved around a little bit. Simpson being kicked outside when you have a compressed formation to one side and the running back over there, particularly on third down. Marlon Humphrey and Brandon Stevens' roles being switched, if you will, depending on field and boundary, but also depending on call. And to this point, we haven't allowed a touchdown. Of course, what's coming up is the Philly or double reverse pass, where Bo Nix is able to get a touchdown against Marcus Williams. We'll get to that in a moment. I really like this concept by Denver. They're getting the running back out into the flats against, again, it's a 4-2-5 Mike look by us with Ardarius Washington and as the nickel in the middle of the field. They did beat us on this over concept a couple of times. You certainly have what looks like a half-field safety in Kyle Hamilton, a half-field safety here. Marlon has released the receiver to the inside. He's really got no work down there at all, so you're talking about really 4 to one side, in my opinion, which has plagued us since the Chiefs game and the AFC Championship game last year. So that's what I mean when I say 4 to one side. The fourth guy, meaning the fourth guy to get there, is almost always open. The fourth player to that side. Now, this happens to be a 2nd and 8. Let's get back real quick so you can see the alignment I'm talking about with Ardarius Washington. Normally, the nickel defender is going to be to the field. And what we seem to have been doing often was putting Kyle Hamilton there with no nickel defender in support. The nickel defender is over here to the tight end side. Maybe we're making it look like man. It's a 2nd and 8, excuse me. So it's interesting to me. You still have the same dynamic where they could run the running back out in the flats, shield concept on us, and try to rub these guys and see if Marlon Humphrey adjusts to that route by the running back out into the flats. Teams aren't as willing to do that until it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 6. But there you see the element that I was describing. Williams is the last guy over there to that side because he started to the boundary. And just numerically, we don't have enough people to cover him without Ardarius Washington being lined up to that side initially. It's not a mistake to line him up in that Mike position. He really, not necessarily on this play in a Mike position, but it's just a new alignment, if you will, out of our nickel defense. So now we've got Ardarius as a half-field safety, still on their 4th possession. We're in the 2nd quarter, obviously. And Kyle Hamilton is as the nickel defender lined up to the field. Got to kind of thank Sean Payton for this play, for losing a man at the point of attack. Trenton Simpson ends up being unblocked on toss as the frontside inside linebacker. I mean, you really can't get things done if that's the case. So they're going to bring this tight end back post-snap, almost like a split zone look. It's a 2nd and 6 in the 2nd quarter. Again, this is the drive where Denver's going to go down and score on the Philly play. There's Trenton Simpson here. Track him during the play. The motion man, goes out to get the corner. No one gets up to the frontside inside linebacker. 54 is closing off Roquan on the backside. Roquan, by the way, refuses to be blocked in this game. He played pissed off. There's 10 or 12 plays here where he looks really pissed off getting to the football, which is good to see. Simpson, first contact, gets credit for the tackle. Roquan is there as well. Creates a 3rd and 5. And as much as good as I had to say about Roquan on that play, this one he just gets absolutely juked. This is 3rd and 5. Very next play, obviously. And we're playing man free versus trips. So manned up here, Hamilton on Humphrey. Manned up here. Everything looks good. You will see there's a little bit of separation once Humphrey gets away with a little shove, push off, breaks the posture of Kyle Hamilton, if you will. But Bo Nix, at the moment that he's reading this, you can see he's already put his foot in the ground to go. He was reading it just before. At the moment that he's reading this, there's nothing available here or here. Tight end has chipped and working out into the flat. It's going to be covered by, I believe that's Ardarius Washington. So our typical man free on 3rd and 5, and Bo Nix is just going to juke Roquan Smith and get a 15-yard gain. After that, it seemed like we were less aggressive with our pass rush calls. Of course, like I said, we're also, I think, about 8.5 minutes left in the 2nd quarter here. So thereafter this, we get the touchdown to Zay Flowers, and we also get 2 touchdowns in the 3rd quarter. So the tone of the game had changed drastically. Pass interference call up here to the top side. Not sure what Brandon Stephens is going to do or supposed to do against some of these receivers that have really long arms and a large wingspan and are going to use their hands to, I don't want to use the phrase push off, because like George Pickens is really good at this stuff, basically extending his hands but not full extension of his arms, and that benefits those guys who have such a large wingspan because they don't have to push off. They don't have to basically straighten the arm out all the way in order to get some separation. That's not what actually occurs here with Courtland Sutton. What I'm saying is Brandon Stephens, by definition, has to kind of use his hands. There's a balance here, clearly. It looks like you've got an RPO. 72 is kind of slipping underneath and letting the edge defender get upfield. So it looks like they do have some type of possible run element to this, and we're reacting to it here and here as well. Another moment where we're leaving Brandon Stephens on an island down there in the red zone. We're just going to see this more often. We are, if we continue to put him over there, and we have that tendency on film that's been there for a long time, that he will and kind of has to use his hands. Defensive pass interference, I think, was an appropriate call by the refs. It was the right call. Gives them a 1st and goal from the 1, and we played some great defense here. Tavius Robinson was an ass kicker in this game. Chris Board off the edge is going to get involved as well. Trenton Simpson gets credit for the tackle, closing down from the backside, the far side of the field. Again, you can thank Sean Payton for this one. They ran this twice, and one of which was on a 2nd and 10 later in the game. like, why are you running a fullback dive on 2nd and 10? Just really weird call. Wormley, Tavius Robinson standing up at the point of attack. Roquan Smith able to play this interior gap. Running back feels or sees pressure, so he feels like he's got to bounce it to the outside. Chris Board is there, first contact. Tavius Robinson also using the tight end / fullback, whatever 45 is, using him to make first contact on the running back as well. They gave Robinson credit for the tackle. Board made first contact, and then Simpson and Robinson as well. Really nice job by Tavius Robinson on this play and Roquan Smith. This is fantastic from Roquan down here in the goal line playing goal line defense. Immediately recognizes that it's pass, takes off out into the flats with the tight end. Number one. Number two, T-Rob, they're trying to cut him, and then he's still getting to the quarterback, make contact. Nix throws it out of bounds. I initially didn't think this ball made it to the line of scrimmage on the broadcast, but clearly, seeing here now, it did go through the end zone. 2nd and goal from the 2 at this point. Nice job covering everything up. Hamilton down here. You lose Board, but Board is matched up with this running back in the flats. And then off screen, let me pull this back a little bit. My apologies. Roquan doing a nice job, like I said, of matching the route immediately to the flats. We're in a goal line look. We've taken our corners off the field. And Roquan does a nice job matching up, as well as Chris Board, to force an incompletion. We're to the other angle here. This is a 3rd down. And you know what's coming up next after this one, so it's going to be tough to watch. There is a pick here on Marlon Humphrey, who is manned up on 84. It looks like him and Kyle Hamilton are communicating a little bit. Marlon is pointing something out. Oweh's going to get pressure here. Simpson is also on the running back. Cortland Sutton close to a pick downfield, I guess because it only occurred at the line of scrimmage. So we have correctly identified, this is Simpson. We've correctly identified that they're probably looking to get the running back out in the flats. Cortland Sutton's going to pin down on Simpson, so trying to basically abuse us with the same concept that we've given up touchdowns or given up big plays on 3rd down. And because of Simpson's alignment, he's able to shed Cortland Sutton, get out to the running back. Oweh is in Bo Nix's face. That's the only thing that forces this to be an incompletion, because we either A, got picked, or B, Marlon thought we were going to switch, and then Kyle Hamilton was going to take over the tight end. Don't really see any conversation between these two guys, which leads me to believe it just ended up being a pick conceptually for Marlon to get shielded by the tight end. You can see the tight end right here, taking his right shoulder, making sure that he makes contact with Marlon. Humphrey, 84, running across. Humphrey on Humphrey, or not on Humphrey in this case, running across the field. Clearly he's open. Were it not for Oweh getting to Bo Nix, he'd be able to set his feet, make a cleaner throw. That one ends up being high, incomplete. Sets up the Philly call. Conceptually, the guy we lose here is Kyle Hamilton. It's not that it's his fault, but the tight end flashes across, kind of taking you to the play, and we're in man. So this tight end here is going to go across, and Kyle Hamilton, I think, has already indicated to the other side that, hey, if the tight end goes across, you're going to take him. Now, unfortunately, no one does that either, so Marcus Williams is left with 2 here. I'd like to see him make a play on the ball once he recognizes that it's going to be thrown to the quarterback. Here, I'd like to see him get up and make a play on the ball. He's just trying to make a tackle. You have to make a decision in that moment. Am I going to try to tackle him short, whereby I'm essentially letting him catch the ball, or am I going to try to get up and defend the pass? I'd like to see him defend the pass there. And again, it's not Kyle Hamilton's fault on this play, but what I'm saying is, at the point of attack, that's the guy we're losing because Hamilton is responsible for that tight end man. I'll pause it a couple times so you can see the tight end work back across the field. Hamilton goes with it, and then he thinks he sees something. Maybe it's the running back coming across, whatever, that pulls him back in that direction. So we've now got a 2-on-1. Theoretically, 45 is obviously an eligible receiver. Him or Bo Nix could catch the football. Obviously, Bo Nix did. So we did get a touchdown. We did get a stop, hold them to a field goal later in the second quarter. I believe that's how they got their 10 points in the first half. and then our offense exploded in the third quarter. I really think this is what we need from the standpoint for our defense. Be able to get one stop in the second quarter. This is a gross oversimplification. But globally, we need to get one stop, maybe two, in the second and third quarter, and then have our offense double up or even triple up. Score 17 or 21 points in the second and third quarter. You're not going to be able to do that every game. You're going to face some really good defenses, obviously. That's the way it worked out in this game. Of course, Zay Flowers got a touchdown in the second quarter. We scored 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. Defense didn't have to do much. They did get 2 3-and-outs, which was critical to gaining some separation. We're now into the third quarter, about 9 minutes left, and this is going to be what I would say is conceptually a 3+1. We do blitz with the running back, but we did this so many times, with the linebacker. We did this so many times where he would make contact and then just kind of stop or sit. Nick scrambles up the middle for 3 yards. It's a 2nd and 5. So have we shown this before? Not that much. Other teams have used this against us, whereby it's the Kansas City Chiefs, what I'm mentioning. They would have 3 rushers and then one guy being the quote, 4th rusher, but after making contact and occupying someone, he's kind of stepping back, really not committing to the rush. That's not a failed rush by the inside linebacker. That is a 3, we would call it a 3+1. Different people have different names for it. Broderick Washington ends up, I think, making contact with the quarterback, and we're doing a nice job of matching routes. Other than, you do have inside leverage tight end here, and then a receiver who's inside leverage of the corner up to the top side. You got mirrored routes there. Nix isn't able to get anything off. We had zone dropped out Tavius Robinson into that seam, possibly. So here, he's zone dropping out. I think it's 31-10 at this point after our first touchdown of the third quarter. Essentially, you have a version of cover 3 here with 4 underneath, Tavius Robinson being the hook, and then 3 deep coverage there. Hopefully I explained that in a way that makes sense. Forgive me if this video went on too long for you. I understand certain people like long-form content and others do not. I wasn't sure that I wanted to break it up into just a Tavius Robinson film. Probably we'll do a Tavius Robinson film study for the entire 2024 season. When you have 2 sacks, it warrants that, number one. Number two, Trenton Simpson, despite losing the running back on that 1 third down, the big completion to Javonte Williams for 34 yards, I thought played quite well. And you'll see a sack that he has late in the game coming up here in a moment. This is still that third quarter possession. One of Robinson's 2 sacks, and this to me speaks to people talking about how much time the quarterbacks have to throw. This is a tactical decision that the Ravens have made on a 3rd and 2, in my opinion. So again, you've got bunch formation before the motion, running back to that side. So what did we respond with? Trenton Simpson is widened up as an edge defender, theoretically. What's he really there for? He's there to stop this route by the running back. Number one. Number two, Malik Harrison is on the field with Roquan, which is pretty cool. It gives us 3 inside linebackers on the field at this point in time. And because of Simpson's athletic ability, we can make it work. Watch what Harrison does with this tight end and how tied up that route gets, as well as the other route from that side, with Brandon Stevens being in man. Marlon Humphrey, we know, is going to be physical with Cortland Sutton. That was a good matchup that was in our favor, if you ask me. Look at how tied up those routes are. Was Tony Romo correct talking about the guy in motion being out in the flats available for the football? Yes, absolutely. If that's where Bo Nix wants to go with the football on this 3rd and 2, he's got a good chance to get the first down there. But that's not where he elected to go. Tavius Robinson gets a sack. We shouldn't discount these sacks. We shouldn't be saying, oh, this isn't sustainable because we're not getting to the quarterback in time. It's a tactical decision by us to do so. And the lack of awareness by people on social media who should know better is a little bit shocking. It's not to say that every pass rush situation wasn't a failed rush by the Ravens. Of course there were some. But this is an example of one that is a tactical concession by the Ravens to jam receivers and kind of slow play, again, with the inside linebacker, and put the offense in a situation where they have to throw the ball after routes have been jammed up. Why can you make this decision in certain situations? Oh, I don't know, because it's 3rd and 2 and they only need 2 yards. So generally the routes they're going to run are going to be shorter routes, which they are. This is just smart defense. It's just situational awareness, and we have to give credit to Zach Orr and the defensive staff and the defensive players for doing that. Is it a different style of defense on 3rd and 2 than maybe we've played in the last 2 years? Sure. Okay, fine. Who cares? It's effective. End zone angle, same play. Forgive the rant there. If you didn't like it, let me know. But you see Harrison's going to jam that up. Millette is going across in motion. Stevens just stacked. So he's also going to be quite physical here with the remaining receiver. I think it's Vele, 17. I actually talked about this one already. Hamilton breaks down on the tight end. I love the concept. We've been doing this. This is almost a Wink Martindale special. Think of the Kansas City Chiefs in Oweh's rookie year where he jammed the tight end and then rushed late and got the hit on Mahomes for the really poor decision he made on an interception that was caught, I think, by Tavon Young, but I could be wrong. It's essentially the same coverage to bunch. Notice the way these guys are behaving and the leverage they're playing with. Tavis Robinson, I think, has got the free run. You always want someone to get after the quarterback, even if you're slow playing it. In my opinion, that's an example of a slow play. Really nice job by Kyle Hamilton here, getting a tackle for loss. We're late in the 3rd quarter, so the game is obviously over at this point. I think it's 38-10. Essentially playing a quarter-half version where we've got man on number 1 to the quarter side. Hamilton comes downhill to make a tackle on the running back. It is a little bit of a concession here by the Broncos in terms of the routes they're running. They must have a pretty good idea of what we're playing coverage-wise down here. I would call this the quarter side, with Wiggins and then the safety rolling over. Because they're just vacating with this route here by Cortland Sutton on an over concept. Running back again to the bottom side of our screen. This is the same exact play that they ran earlier that I called 4 to a side. Basically, the running back was the 4th guy there. This time he's there a little earlier. There's no threat for Kyle Hamilton, so he comes downhill, makes the tackle. It is a 1st and 10, but essentially you have the same play call that I showed from earlier on a 3rd and 4. 2nd and 4, where Williams was able to catch it for an 8-yard gain to convert the 1st down. This is going to be a late target against Brandon Stevens' side. Now, this is also a really nice job by Ardarius Washington and Nate Wiggins in terms of awareness. So why is Ardarius Washington over here? Let's pull this back and watch what happens with these 2 routes here. The number 1 receiver goes underneath, disappears, and number 2, the tight end, goes vertical. Second through. He's the second guy, though, because he chips Ngakoue and then goes vertical. So smart defense by Ardarius Washington. He's released that route to Nate Wiggins, and then he's pushed to the other side of the field. Essentially, it's just a match concept. And you do have a late throw by, an early throw, by Bo Nix before the cut has been made. And it's an incomplete pass on a little dig down here to Sutton. There is some contact by Brandon Stevens being nice and physical with him. There did seem to be a little bit more communication on routes, in my opinion. So what I mean by that is Ardarius Washington is going to point here in a moment. He's communicating to Wiggins. And just after that, you also are getting an underneath release by Kyle Hamilton, and Kyle Hamilton is pushing that route into Roquan. There did seem to be a little bit more communication, in my opinion, post-snap during the play. So maybe that had been repped or drilled a whole lot more during the week. You got Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey in man here. We're at 38-10 now. We're obviously into the 4th quarter. Really nice job by Marlon Humphrey, if you ask me, all the way through the play. I did think there was 2 reps where he was beat quite badly in this game. This was not one of them. Van Noy slow playing it to deal with the tight end / fullback. Kyle Hamilton ends up matching up with the tight end. Humphrey goes all the way across the field with Humphrey, and then circles back as Wormley's trying to get to the quarterback. Matabike kind of lost the football here, number one. Number two, 79 has reported eligible again as the left tackle. And so in terms of awareness, credit to Marcus Williams for staying with the tight end, who, like I said, was eligible on the play. You have to think in that moment, if you're Marcus Williams, or at least this is a negative way of looking at it, you've given up a touchdown to Bo Nix as a reception. You certainly don't want to give up a touchdown catch to a left tackle in the same game. Finally, Simpson's sack. We're kind of on the wrong side with the running back. So, again, we're talking about the running back first to the flats from either a bunch or a compressed split with two receivers. And in fact, that's what happens. It is Cortland Sutton, however, which tells you a little bit about what the Broncos thought of their ability to get people open down here, and that they were putting their best wide receiver at running back. Kyle Hamilton does seem to identify it. I think Van Noy knows as well, even though he doesn't say anything. Van Noy ends up covering Cortland Sutton out in the flats. Simpson was lined up wide, kind of floats for a moment to look and see if he's got anything coming back. And then once Bo Nix goes, he's able to get the sack. I'd like to see that a little more often. As athletic as Simpson is, especially when we're playing man-free, it would basically mean Roquan would be on the running back and Simpson would be the low hole underneath dropper who theoretically would be tasked with getting after the quarterback if he was to get away from the four-man rush. Maybe I'll diagram that up in a Twitter video or something on YouTube this week if you guys would like to see it. I feel like you're looking at a defense that was more situationally aware this week, yes. Was Zach Orr more adaptable during the game? I don't know if I can say he was more adaptable. There is visual evidence for us of us making tactical concessions and slow playing the rush more. And again, that's where I think that we're really off base if we're analyzing the game and we're talking about time to throw. That was the goal of what the Ravens were doing. And that is an actual strategy that teams have used for a long time. It's not just against athletic quarterbacks. In this case, it happens to be a guy, Bo Nix, who may have been more athletic on the field than we presumed during the game. And it seemed to me after that scramble where he juked Roquan Smith for a 15-yard gain on third down, it seemed to me after that play, there was a clear difference or shift in the way that we rushed on second and long and particularly on third down. Let me know if you agree with that comment and that summary judgment of our pass rush. I am not in the same level of concern as other people because I think the style of play that the Ravens showed was appropriate for the situation. Will it be appropriate against Joe Burrow? Will it be appropriate against other guys? I'm not sure, but the games are played one game at a time. And in this particular instance, I think Zach Orr and the other defensive staff made the right choices, put guys in position to succeed generally. Were there wholesale changes? No. Was there small little adjustments that we can look at and we can say improvements were being made? And certainly there were aspects that, to me, illustrated things had been focused on during the week. Yes, I'd still like to see us stare at the quarterback a little bit less. I actually did not cover an example of Marcus Williams staring at the quarterback so much that he basically didn't get involved in the play. It was the last play that I showed you there. But in any case, that's my video breakdown of the Ravens defense against the Broncos. Certainly went on way longer than most of my content has leading up to week 9. If you think this is too long, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'd actually do myself. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this video, look at the Ravens defense and some improved play and improved awareness and adjustments during the game, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it on social media to help this content get more reach.